Hi and welcome to the 8th module in this self-help program for social anxiety. In this module we will address social anxiety in connection with public speaking and what you can do to get better at it. If you've not seen the previous modules in this program, we recommend that you do this as this video builds on what's been presented earlier. Look for links in the video description. When we say public speaking, we mean every kind of public speaking you can think of, whether at school, at work, in front of friends or family. It can be anything from asking a quick question in front of a group of people to long and complicated talks, demonstrations and presentations. In this module, we will first give you a short summary on the major themes. Number 1, most of us are afraid of public speaking. Number 2, getting good at public speaking is just like learning to drive a car or learning to read. If you want to get good at it, you need to practice. Number 3, self-focus, safety behavior and avoidance can sabotage your progress and maintain anxiety. Number 4, targeted exposure is an effective way to work on public speaking anxiety. Let's take a closer look at these points. In 2012, the American psychologists Karen Dwyer and Marlena Davison gave 850 random American students a list of common things one can be afraid of and asked them to rank these in degrees of awfulness. When Dwyer and Davison counted everyone's answers, they found that the fear of heights came in 5th place with 37% of the votes, loneliness came in 4th with 38%, death was 3rd with 43%, financial problems came in 2nd place with 54%, but the clear winner was the fear of public speaking with 61% of the votes. That makes it strange that so many feel that they're alone with their fear of public speaking. How can this be when it's so common? A possible explanation here is that many people do public speaking while anxious and, with some practice, manage to give good talks even when they're anxious, making others misinterpret them as unaffected by fear. We say this because it really isn't the case that nervousness or anxiety is terrible for the presenter. On the contrary, a little anxiety may be just what you need to keep sharp and focused. If public speaking gives you a lot of anxiety, you might have fallen into an unfortunate pattern. It goes something like this. Anxiety means that you avoid public speaking. Avoidance results in you never getting practice with public speaking. The fact that you never get practice means that on the rare occasions where you actually have to speak in front of an audience, you are unskilled at doing it. This again might result in some bad experience and more anxiety. With this vicious circle, we can see that your skill as a speaker and willingness to engage in public speaking, even though it's very scary, are crucial aspects if you want to master public speaking. We recommend that you make a presentation from a random topic that you practice for yourself. When practicing, you must strive to keep other factors just like they would be in a real public speaking scenario. For example, you should give yourself the same time restraints, speak as if there are many listeners in the room, stand on your feet if that's something you would have to do, use PowerPoint or other presentation tools in the same way, etc. When you manage to give a good presentation without an audience, you can practice with a small audience, with someone you know and trust. Repeat the process and ask your audience for a feedback afterwards. What was unclear? What could you have done better? Had more or less focus on? Etc. The next step is to move up the hierarchy and keep an eye out for new challenges. As mentioned earlier in the program, there are several pit stops you should watch out for while exposing and practicing. When giving a presentation while you're scared, you might direct your attention inward, what we call self-focus, which will increase your anxiety and could make the presentation itself worse. The inward feeling of anxiety may eclipse any potential encouraging looks from the audience if you stare into the sheet of notes. Here you should strive to do the opposite, speaking to the audience while actively focusing on your presentation and the impressions you get from your audience. A handy tip here is to fake it until you make it, namely that you pretend you have self-confidence even though you are really anxious. We recommend rewatching Module 4 if you need a recap on self-focus. Another pitfall is safety behavior, as we mentioned earlier. These strategies and tricks are used to reduce anxiety. Earlier in the program, we talked a lot about why safety strategies maintain anxiety. When it comes to public speaking, there are some common safety behaviors you should be aware of. An evasive gaze is unfortunate if you want to get rid of public speaking anxiety. Strive to look people in the eye while talking. We don't mean that you should constantly stare into the eyes of your audience. Good public speakers will let their gaze wander and also let their gaze rest on something else occasionally. But be sure not to fixate on the floor or the sheet in front of you or anything else in order to reduce anxiety. If you've been following this program so far, you should know why this is unfortunate. Many want to play it safe by writing and then practicing a full script into memory or by reciting the script at the presentation. There are some problems with this strategy. Number one, you aren't giving the opportunity to practice normal public speaking, where you just talk naturally on a rehearsed topic. This means no reality checking of the catastrophe thoughts. Number two, you are extra vulnerable for self-focus when limiting your perception to a piece of paper. Number three, you are in danger of not remembering every detail. And if you lose track of where you were, you may find it difficult to find your way back. Number four, in most cases, this is not what an employer or a teacher or a friend wants you to do if you receive a public speaking assignment. It's very rare that people want a recited speech compared to a well-prepared and natural talk. However, in some contexts, a recited speech is desirable. If this is the case, then it's a good idea to prepare yourself by practicing speech recital. In some cases, preparation themselves can be a form of safety behavior. If you, for example, are doing a public speaking assignment, but there are no facts or content that you need or should prepare, but you try anyway to rehearse everything in detail to keep your anxiety under control. Here's another example. Let's say you're listening to a presenter while you want to ask the person a question. Let's say you practice and rehearse the question you're going to ask several times before you finally raise your hand. Can you tell me more about the previous point? The rehearsal would be an unfortunate safety behavior in this case. It would be much better just to go for it and raise your hand and ask your question naturally without rehearsal, giving you the chance to reality check any potential catastrophe thoughts. Conversely, if you're going to give a talk on Norway's role in the EU, you must of course read up on Norway's role in the EU, find out what to say, in what order, and what to emphasize on, and so on. Here we see that the function of the preparation is key. If the goal of the preparation is to avoid anxiety and to make sure that the catastrophes you envision doesn't happen, then preparation is really unfortunate. For example, what if I don't know what to say? What if I lose my voice? What if they all laugh at me? This is because the preparation makes reality checking impossible. On the other hand, if the function of the preparation is to make your presentation more informative, structured and nuanced, then it's of course a very good idea indeed. Another way to reduce the effects of exercise and exposure is to constantly make excuses and give your audience explanations for why your presentation is subpar. It's common to start with this in an attempt to lower expectations in advance, but this seldom has a positive effect. It's better to let the audience independently review your public speaking skills without trying to affect them. Another variant of this is when a presenter does not prepare at all, where preparations are necessary as a kind of self-sabotage. The goal of this strategy is sometimes to hedge your bet in case you get negatively evaluated, because you can then emphasize that you haven't prepared yourself. Another reason for not preparing yourself, where you really should, may be because the preparation process itself arouses anxiety, as the mere thought of public speaking is awful. In this case, the lack of preparation is a kind of avoidance that backfires when you're actually doing the public speaking itself unprepared. Here we'll repeat a helpful tip from earlier. Doing the opposite of what's natural is often the way to go. In this case, by doing thorough preparation as an exposure exercise, even though it's very uncomfortable. In the previous modules, we have described how anxiety disappears if you're exposed to it. Because by exposing yourself to your fears, you get to reality check your catastrophic thoughts that maintain the anxiety. This also applies to fear of public speaking. If there are specific aspects of public speaking that bothers you, you should strive to face these fears. For example, let's say that you're very afraid of what will happen if you stutter and fumble with your words. How about testing this in practice? Raise your hand and add a little false stammer when asking a question. If you're afraid that the anxiety will cause you to forget everything you were going to say, then the best way to reality check this catastrophe is to face your anxiety in a public speaking situation where you can experience that your memory works even with a lot of anxiety. In this process, as with exposure in general, it's a good idea to gradually increase the difficulty if the thought of public speaking in front of a large crowd of people seems impossible. Check out this progression. Ask questions in a meeting. Relay short messages to a group. Speak in front of a small group of friends. Do short presentations in front of close colleagues. Do long presentations in front of close colleagues. Do long presentations in a large crowd of colleagues. If you want rapid improvement and efficient exposure, you should give yourself as many challenges as possible, while varying the type and setting of the public speaking. To do this right, we recommend you re-watch the modules on exposure therapy. We also recommend that you use the worksheet that we introduced in Module 6 to maximize the effectiveness of the exercise. The only thing left now is to wish you good luck with your public speaking. We end this video with a quote from the book The Art of Public Speaking from Dale Carnegie. A book may give you excellent suggestions on how best to conduct yourself in the water. But sooner or later you must get wet, perhaps even struggle and be half scared to death. There are a great many wetless bathing suits worn at the seashore, but no one has ever learned to swim in them. To plunge is the only way. Good luck!